I recently broke up with my ex-boyfriend. He was a walking red flag, and I just had to end the relationship. In my despair and loneliness, I decided to give dating apps a try. I've had mixed experiences with them in the past, but Tinder always seemed to work best for me, so I stuck with that. Just for context, I'm bisexual, which sometimes makes the dating pool a little more unpredictable. Anyway, I was scrolling through profiles one evening when I came across something that made me stop mid-scroll. It was my face, my pictures, my name. Someone had created a profile pretending to be me. At first, I thought maybe it was someone who just happened to look exactly like me. But as I read through the bio, it became clear that someone was actively impersonating me. The bio did not match anything I would write, and at the bottom, there was a link to an Instagram account. I was pretty disturbed by this, but decided to click the link. It took me to an Instagram page with all my photos. Whoever created it had pulled pictures from my actual Instagram account, and even added some captions that sounded close to how I would write, but just off, like someone trying too hard. Then I noticed something that made the situation even worse. The Instagram bio had a link to an OnlyFans account. Now, I've never been on OnlyFans. I don't judge, because I have a few friends who do it, but it's never been my thing. So I clicked that link and paid the $5.99 subscription fee, because I had to know what was going on here. The account was full of explicit photos of me, pictures I'd only ever sent to one person, my recent ex. We'd broken up a couple of months earlier after I found out he was cheating on me. I never imagined he'd stoop this low, but he did cheat, so maybe this wasn't too surprising after all. The realization hit me like a ton of bricks. He had been saving my private photos and using them to make money. I started having heart palpitations and decided to call him. He did not answer, so I sent him a text. I did not hold back. I told him I knew about the OnlyFans account, the fake Tinder profile, and the fake Instagram. He finally replied after about 20 minutes with a smug message, admitting everything. He did not even deny it. He said he'd taken a picture of my driver's license while we were still together, and used it to pass OnlyFans' ID verification process. He even bragged that he made $9,000 since starting the account. When I demanded he take everything down, he laughed it off and said he'd just create a new one if I reported this one. Then he sent me a screenshot of the subscriber list. It was full of names I recognized, guys I knew, some of whom I considered friends. My stomach churned as I realized how many people had seen those photos, and I felt humiliated, violated, and furious all at once. I immediately reported the OnlyFans account and the fake Instagram profile. I also called the police, thinking this was a clear case of identity theft, but the response I got from law enforcement was lukewarm at best. They took my statement but did not seem particularly urgent about doing anything. I was told it could take weeks, maybe months, to investigate. Meanwhile, my ex kept taunting me. He sent me messages saying I should just let it go, because he was making good money and wasn't planning to stop. He even had the audacity to suggest I should be proud that people were paying to see me. Reporting the account got it taken down, but just as he threatened, a new one popped up within days. I'd like to say my friends were supportive, but a few of them admitted they'd subscribed out of curiosity. One even tried joking about it, saying, "At least you're famous now," as if that would make me feel better. It didn't, and I'm still dealing with the fallout. Every time I report one account, another one seems to take its place. I've hired a lawyer and filed a restraining order against my ex, but the wheels of justice move slowly. The worst part is the constant paranoia. I've deleted most of my social media, but I'm always afraid another profile will pop up somewhere. I've even started questioning my friendships, wondering who subscribed, who knew, and who kept quiet. If I could go back in time, I'd never send those photos in the first place, or even date him for that matter. I thought I could trust him, but clearly I was wrong. Now I'm just trying to pick up the pieces and figure out how I'm going to move forward. It's a nightmare I would not wish on anyone. I matched with a girl on Tinder, and we hit it off pretty quickly. We exchanged a lot of messages throughout the day, and later that night, we had a phone call. The conversation flowed naturally, and I found myself genuinely enjoying her outlook on life. About 30 minutes in, I asked if she wanted to go out the next night, and she agreed. Everything seemed to be going great, despite the many failures I've had on Tinder. About 5 minutes after we ended the call, she messaged me and said, "Hey, there's something I need to tell you." I braced myself, thinking maybe she had a boyfriend, or she was no longer interested, which has happened to me quite often, but it wasn't that. She told me she was permanently in a wheelchair. At that moment, I felt like I was stuck. If I backed out, I'd be an asshole. If I went through with it and it didn't work out, I feel like I was leading her on. But honestly, I figured, why not? It's just one date, and it could still be fun. Plus, she was the only girl recently who actually wanted to go out with me. We talked more that night and went to bed on good terms. The next morning, she called me early, like earlier than I expected for someone I just met on Tinder. She sounded excited and told me she was doing something crazy. I asked what it was, but she said I'd have to wait and see. A few hours later, she called again and said she was sending me a picture of what she did. I checked my phone, and there it was, a picture of her wrist, freshly tattooed with my name on it. I did not know how to properly respond to this. I just kind of laughed it off on the phone and then immediately called my friends to tell them about it. Everyone agreed it was insane, but I'd already committed to the date, and I figured I might as well go through with it. Plus, I had to see if the tattoo was real. That night, I drove to her place. As I got closer, I realized my car was not wheelchair accessible, but she did mention that she was able to drive, so I called and asked if she could drive us instead. She said sure. When I got to her apartment complex, she rolled up in her car, and I hopped in. Here's where things started to get really weird. I had assumed she had some sort of handicapped-enabled car. Nope. Turns out, she used 2 crutches to operate the pedals, one for the gas and one for the brake. I was immediately worried for our lives. Southern California freeways are no joke, especially during evening traffic. I tried to act nonchalantly, but every time she switched between crutches, I felt like I was one bump away from ending up on the news. By the grace of God, we made it to the restaurant, and the dinner itself was fine. A bit awkward, but fine. Then her phone rang. It was her 10-year-old daughter. Apparently, she had left her daughter home alone, and the kid was scared. I offered to leave right away so she could go home, but she shrugged it off and said, "It's okay. I gave her something to help her sleep. She'll be out soon." I did not even know how to respond to that. We finished eating, and I had planned to take her to a movie, but after the whole leaving the kid at home thing, I was already over it. I told her we should just head back. On the drive back home, things went from bad to worse. Out of nowhere, she turned to me and said, "Wow, I'm kind of drunk." My stomach dropped. She had 1 drink at dinner. 1. And I'm thinking, how does 1 drink do that? Is she lying? I asked if I could drive instead, but she waved me off and said, "Nah, I'm fine. I'll just get in the fast lane." She used her crutch to slam on the gas, and I swear I started mentally saying my goodbyes. By some miracle, we made it back to her place in one piece. I helped wheel her chair to her door, said goodbye, and got out of there as fast as I could. I did not even look back. The tattoo was real, by the way. She sent me a close-up later. That was the first and last time I ever met her. Lesson learned. Just because someone seems cool over the phone, it doesn't mean they're not a walking red flag factory in real life. I'm in no way proud of the story, but I feel like it's worth sharing so that maybe someone else can avoid what happened to me. A few years ago, I decided to give dating apps a try. I had just come out of a long relationship that ended horribly, and after a few years of being single, I thought it was time to put myself back out there. I downloaded Tinder, swiped around for a while, and ended up matching with a guy who seemed really sweet. He told me he was from China, and his profile pictures made him look like a model. Like, I'm talking stunningly handsome. We hit it off over text. He was funny, polite, and seemed genuinely interested in getting to know me and not rushing to get in my pants. We talked for about a week before he suggested meeting up for coffee. I was hesitant at first, because I had been single for so long, but figured, why not? He seemed safe enough, and we'd be meeting at a public place. When we met at the coffee shop, it was immediately clear that his pictures were fake. He looked nothing like them whatsoever. Later I found out he'd been using photos of a famous Chinese actor, Godfrey Gao. When I asked him about it, he said he used those pictures because he thought people wouldn't give him a chance if he used his real ones. I should have walked away right then, but I didn't. I felt awkward, did not want to make a scene, so I stayed. Plus, I wasn't paying, so whatever, free coffee. We got our drinks and started talking. He was actually quite charming in person, despite being a catfish, and I convinced myself the whole thing wasn't a big deal. After about 20 minutes, he asked if I wanted to go for a walk. He said there was a nice park nearby, and it might be better to talk somewhere quieter. It sounded innocent enough, so I agreed. This is where things went very wrong, very fast. Instead of walking, he suggested we drive there because it was just down the road. Without thinking, I got into his car. I realize now how stupid that was, but at the time, I was too socially awkward to express a hard no. Once we were in the car though, I noticed we weren't heading toward anything familiar. We drove for about 25 or 30 minutes to a completely different city basically. When I asked him about it, he said he wanted to take me to a trail that he liked. Major red flags were going off at this point in my head. We parked in some secluded area near some trees. There were no other cars or people around that I could see. He turned off the engine, and before I could say anything, he leaned over and started kissing me. I was caught off guard, but I tried to playfully laugh it off and gently push him away. That's when he grabbed me. Things escalated quickly. He started groping me, and when I told him to stop, he just kept going. I said no multiple times, but he acted like he didn't hear me. Then he said something that made every nerve in my body jolt. I've never fucked a white girl before. I tried to push him off, but he was really strong. He literally grabbed me by the arm, dragged me out of the front seat, and shoved me into the back. I was terrified these would be my last moments on Earth. My body froze and I couldn't even scream. He locked the doors and climbed in after me. He pinned me down and would not stop. I kept fighting though, and at some point, I managed to kick him hard enough that he lost his balance. I scrambled to unlock the door and threw myself out of the car. I did not know where to go, but I just ran. I left my sweater in his car and did not care. I saw a car coming down the road maybe a half mile away and waved it down. It was this teenage girl, probably in high school. She looked scared as I was waving my hands frantically, but she stopped. I ran up to her window and begged her to let me in. I told her I needed help and that someone was after me. She unlocked the door and I climbed in. She immediately locked the doors again and asked if I wanted her to call 911. I said yes. While we were waiting for the police, the guy drove past us, yelling my name. He stopped his car a little ways down and started looking for me on foot. The girl told him we were friends and that she was taking me home. He eventually got back in his car and sped off. When the police arrived, they took my statement and had me go to the station to document everything. A female officer helped me fix my clothes, and took pictures of the bruises and scratches he left on me. They never found him, and I never told anyone in my personal life because I know how much of a dumbass I was in this entire situation. I was simply too embarrassed and ashamed. Looking back, I know how many mistakes I made. I ignored red flags, got into a stranger's car, and let my guard down because I wanted to feel wanted. It's not an excuse, but it's the truth. I'm sharing this because I don't want anyone else to go through what I did. Please be careful, verify who you're meeting, and never get into someone's car unless you're 100% sure you can trust them. It's not worth the risk.